Hello, I'm Chris Daughtry, the Moon Wizard. I'm kidding. I'm actually Jason Statham. And I live my life a quarter mile at a time. I'd like to discuss what I was discussing earlier, but for some reason, actually the reason I know is pretty stupid. It muted the rest of my clip. That's because my alarm rang and I swiped up and it no longer was registering my mic. Which I guess is not supposed to happen, but that is a coincidence. Okay? That is just a coincidence, I think. Typically, if you knew me or you know me from the other platform, you'd be like, what are you saying right now? How dare you say that? Because although I do believe that coincidence is a beautiful word, the term with which we've assigned it is terrible. It's just a coincidence. It's a definition that was made up by the lazy. People that don't feel like figuring out why two events have the same meaning, why they coincide with each other. Just a coincidence is not the right, it's holy shit, it's a coincidence. So I'll start from the beginning. I believe, other than that information is very, very powerful. But without perception, it's useless. You know? What do I mean by that? Have you ever seen the movie Zoolander? I know, trust me, I'm going somewhere with this. If you've ever seen the movie Zoolander, she says to the two of them, fucking Ben Stiller and the other guy, Owen Wilson, the files are in the computer. So the two of them they're doing that scene from A Space Odyssey, I believe, and they're like, and they're like, we're Planet of the Apes, and they're acting like apes and trying to get inside of the computer, which is a big monitor. So they eventually end up throwing it and smashing it on the floor, opening it, thinking the files are in the computer. But that's not what she meant, obviously. Files are in the computer, like on the hard drive, right? But perception, so you have the knowledge, the files are in the computer, but your perception is off. So you smash the computer on the ground, destroying the knowledge that you're supposed to obtain because you think the files are literally in the computer. I mean, it's stupid. It's a funny movie, but that's what I mean about perception versus information. That's like an extreme comedic interpretation of what I'm talking about. But while we're on computers, let's talk about water. Yeah, water. Water has a cycle. It's actually called the water cycle. It consists of 3 steps, I believe. It's evaporation, condensation, and precipitation. So when water evaporates in an ocean somewhere because it's really hot and steam comes off of it. Well, let's take your backyard. In fact, it's just out of the ocean. You're more familiar with backyard, I think, or anyone's backyard if you don't have one. Sometimes in the morning there's fog, especially around now, because the nighttime is very cold. And in the morning it gets warmer, and it starts to steam almost everything. And all that water evaporates into fog, and then it goes up into the atmosphere once at about 10 o'clock in the morning because it completely evaporates. It is not heavy enough to dwell in the atmosphere as fog. Then it goes up to the clouds. It does its thing. It doesn't go out into space. It stays within the stratosphere because we have an atmosphere around this earth that we live on that I believe is a sphere. But if it's not, if you don't think it's a sphere, that's fine. You're still welcome. If you think there's a dome, they're still welcome. Water doesn't leave the dome, though, okay? And while we're on that, let's just agree that gravity is a thing, that it exists, and so does air pressure, okay? Just because I need it for my explanation. Not knocking here, not knocking your beliefs, okay? So we are essentially, if we lived in a vacuum with no gravity, we would be very, very strong. Because there is no gravity. Because all day long what we're doing is when we're getting up or sitting down, we're walking around, we're lifting our arm, we're battling gravity and air pressure. Because, you put a suction cup, take a plunger and you stick it on a table, that's air pressure. It takes a lot of force to get that section off. It's a similar thing with what we're experiencing. And gravity is obviously if you drop a 10-pound weight, it'll fall on the floor. So we're holding you, however much you weigh, off of the ground. So theoretically speaking, if we were in a vacuum with no gravity, we'd be super strong. But we don't even feel that. Astronauts have to work out when they go to space, so when they come back to Earth, they're not weak. They have to work their joints mostly because their joints get weaker. So there's something happening to us all the time that we are essentially fighting or resisting, right? And not noticing it. Yes or no? Obviously. Okay? So much like if I blew a dog whistle. If I blew a dog whistle right now, I have one somewhere here, but I'm not trying to go get it. You would hear air. You would hear psst. That's what you would hear. But your pooch, or your neighbor's pooch, will freak the fuck out because to them it sounds like a really, really loud whistle. And it's not even so much loud, but it's high, it's piercing. It's like if, like when the microphone falls and you hear that feedback, like that really high feedback, that's what a dog whistle sounds like to a dog, I would imagine. Okay, but you can't hear it. Even though they're freaking out because it's so loud to them, you can't hear it. But it's still happening. The reason is because the sound travels at speeds of vibration. So it travels at the speed of sound, which is about 1,200 feet per second. But the vibration is the note that it carries, right? So that's measured in hertz. So like, if I hit excuse me, allow me. It's still ringing. Because you hear the vibration because it's hitting the metal and it's reverberating sound. It traveled to the speaker at 1,200 feet a second, but the note that you heard, bing, was a specific note. Now, if I was to hit a higher thing, it would sound like a higher note and a higher note until eventually the vibrations become so rapid you can't hear it. But a dog still can because it's got more nerve endings in his ears or her ears to be able to perceive sound because they need to. For survival and instinct. Why am I telling you all this? I'm trying to get you to understand that there's a lot of things going on that you don't feel and you don't maybe see or hear, but it does not mean that they don't exist. And I'm not talking about God here. I'm just talking about things in general, like gravity and like what I just said about sound. Okay? Now, water is what I mentioned first. Outside of the water cycle, which is the water that goes into the cloud and comes back as rain eventually, the water that you're drinking today is the same water that the dinosaurs were drinking 50 million years ago, or however the fuck long it was. The Jurassic era, okay? The Velociraptor, the T-Rex with his little hands drank the same water you're drinking, but obviously it got evaporated and it came back. How much water have you drank in your life? Well, it depends. Do you drink a lot? Do you don't? Water, just consume it. Beer's water too, guys. All right? Just saying. Everything is mostly water, including you, which is the most important thing that I'm trying to take away from this, and I want you to take away from this. So just like you can't feel gravity, but it's still there, you can't hear the high-pitched sound, but it's still there, you don't understand that water is alive, but it is, and it's still there. Not that it's alive like in the sense of a blob or an entity that could talk to you, although I'll go into a little bit in how it can, actually, but it's not thinking. It doesn't have a brain. And it's not like a virus that just, water is alive kind of like gravity is alive. I would say that is gravity alive? No, but kind of. Because in space there isn't any of it. So it doesn't live in space. It lives on Earth. It's not a thinking thing, but although you could think about it and you could play with it, because like if you take a giant beam or a tree trunk and you stand it up like this, you could kind of balance it and hold it. And it's like a 500-pound tree trunk. But that same 500-pound, if it's like this, gravity's pulling out all of it. So you can't fuck with gravity in that sense. But you could fuck with it if it's standing up, right? So it's like a living, manageable force, so to speak. It's kind of like water is alive, like fire is alive, actually. But it's water, so it's a little bit more feminine, I guess. If fire is masculine and the apex predator taking over everything it touches, water is the other way around. Water is shapeless, formless. You put water in a cup, it becomes the cup. You put it in a bottle, it becomes the bottle. This is what Bruce Lee said once. Bruce Lee said a lot of shit that was really, really smart, but I'm just relating to him. I don't want you to think that it's my quote. And he says, be like water. What I'm trying to tell you is that you already are like water. You just have to figure that out and just align yourself with that path. So in TikTok, you could record video at half the speed or twice the speed, depending upon what effect you would like to have. So I was recording on TikTok, and I have this little arrow garden for rosemary and thyme and basil, the little thing. It's just basically a hydroponic system for a small herb thing. You could use it for pot, but you have big, little tiny pot plants. That's stupid. So anyway, I have it in my room because I have an herb garden outside. And I get the new ones and I start them in there, and then I put them on the soil. So it always trickles water. And I'm recording this video, and then all of a sudden I hear halfway through it, because every time I like zoom in and I come in and out, I do it on half speed, or I play with it so you see how it works. And all of a sudden I hear like I'm getting reception from another phone or another radio or something. Like, I hear people talking, but it's like in and out. And then it stops. And then it resumes again. And I had to keep playing it a bunch of times to figure out what the fuck it was. It's the water. So the water trickling at half the speed, and more so at a third of the speed, sounds like people talking legit. Like it's unmistakable. But there is a thing, I forget what it's called, but humans look for faces and shit, and we hear, we listen for speech and things. So like if I showed you an ambiguous picture, like this moon, you see the man in the moon, like the eyes and whatever. You look for that face because it's kind of like what you always see. Same thing with speech. If you hear something ambiguous, like the dropping of water, you hear speech in it, but not everything. I don't hear speech in the fucking ocean. When you put the thing in your thing, you hear the ocean. You don't hear humans talking. So why is it you hear humans talking when a water is played at half of the speed? Well, why don't we try running that talking through a dictation app and see if it picks up any words? And what if we realize that it does pick up words in more than one language? 2. English and Russian. Why? Потому что я говорил по-русски 2 дня назад с моей дочкой в этой же комнате. That's right. The same conversation I was having with a kid, my kid, in that room 2 days ago, was replaying back in the water droplets caught by the speech dictation that I ran through it. Now, it wasn't verbatim, I know, yes. It wasn't also the craziest speech dictation. It was just a fucking thing. And the thing is, I ran it through English first, and then through Russian, just to see. And guess what? Both languages came up. Not Spanish, not French. So what I'm trying to tell you here, ladies and gentlemen, is that the water garden that runs, the water that's in it, picked up the vibrations of my voice and my kid's voice, and then played them back to me at 3 times the speed. Either that or I'm going crazy. But I'm going to document this, and I'm going to do it nice and neat in a little package, so that if they come kill me, there's going to be one ready somewhere, and then the other one I'm going to slowly release online just to see how it happens. I am not suicidal. Have you seen the way I look? Do you think I want to fucking kill myself? I'm very, very vain. Fuck you. And, yeah. And I'm not trying to put anyone on the spot here. I don't know who would want to be put on the spot. But what I'm trying to tell you is the next thing. Is that if this is the truth, and if this is indeed what's happening, and I am not crazy, that would mean that water can hold vibrations from your voice and any sound and then reverberate it back. Why is that important? Well, remember when we said that we're all made out of like mostly water? So whatever vibrations that the water inside of you is receiving, either it's from you sending them out or somebody sending them to you, it's just water's around, it's inside of you. So no matter what you're saying, no matter what somebody's saying to you, it's the same vibrations that are going through this water. And what it's going to do is 2 days later, 3 days later, it's going to play them back inside of you. Which is why they say it comes back. Whatever you put out comes back. This is one of the ways that this happens. Is the water is replaying my voice to me. What does it mean? It doesn't mean much, I guess, unless you already know what I mean. The water inside of you affects you. Obviously, your blood is mostly water. Your saliva is mostly water. Everything you have inside of you is mostly water. 70%. Just like the earth. Coincidence? That's not a coincidence. Not at all. There's more, much more. I want to get into it a little bit further, but for now I leave you with this. Magic, like Merlin with the hat and the King Arthur sword shit and that magic, it's not gone. It still exists. It just is not called magic anymore, except if you're gathering with cards. You know what I mean? It's called different things now, like chemistry, psychology, physics, and now there's quantum physics. artificial intelligence. All those are different types of magic, just like some sociology, physics, psychology were all once just philosophy. Philosophy is the study of thinking better, period. If you asked Isaac Newton, back in the day when he did what he did for a living, he wouldn't say that he was a physicist. He would say he was a philosopher, because physics wasn't invented yet until he invented it through philosophy. So magic doesn't stop existing. It never stopped existing. They just adapted it to different things. And let me tell you something right now, that words, just like vibrations, just like cymatics displays when the sound touches water, I'm going to take it a step further and say it could talk back to you. Words are vibrations, and every single word that you utter or that is said to you, but that's what I mean, voiced, not thought, voiced, is a spell. Every word. Nobody ever says abracadabra and the door opens. They chant something. Why? Repetition. Repetition is key. You're not actually making the environment open the door for you. You're vibrating the water molecules inside of yourself and inside of your disciples around you to unify together and perform a task onto the environment. And I just got the chills like a motherfucker. That has been the first time in weeks. That means I said something true. I'm going to leave you with that.